We just finished our leadership seminars, and I know some of you were able to participate. But one of the things that we've highlighted, and I want to definitely give our zones 33 and 34 counterparts credit, as well as the other coordinators in North America, we've formed a fellowship and a network to really work on a challenge for all of us in North America. And that's how to improve the membership within our organization, because the numbers are declining. Yet, as Beth mentioned, some clubs are succeeding. So there was a survey of clubs in North America who've had year-over-year growth before, during, and after the pandemic. And one of the things that really stood out in all of the clubs, there was a common theme of 5 key attributes that really led in each of these clubs. One is they had outstanding governance. The clubs were well organized. They planned, they set goals, and they have continuity in their leadership. They have active, intentional membership engagement. You know, a healthy, engaged, and inspired membership within your club is the key to success. And they have dynamic, meaningful service projects. Engaged members keep busy doing things throughout the year. And a key part of Rotary is our service. And they have a strong public image. Clubs aren't just doing, they're seen in their community doing to attract others to the organization. And diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're ensuring that their membership truly reflects the communities and reaching out to underserved demographics. Now, not all leaders focused on all these areas, but most clubs take each of these areas seriously. And the significant majority of these clubs don't just plan and set goals, they keep those plans alive. They keep them current and they review them regularly, some even more often than once a year. And they adjust as the year goes on. And if you notice, the majority of these clubs, 83%, established annual membership goals. Because if you don't have a goal, how do you know where you're going? The reality is, in this last Rotary year, in the heart of America, zones 30 and 31, almost half of our clubs added 0 members or maybe 1. That's not where they ended up the year. That's getting them in the door. We know there's natural attrition in all clubs, and we can reduce it, but we'll just never eliminate it. To truly grow our Rotary clubs, we must attract members to our clubs. And we need to overcome the attrition by attracting more than we're going to lose. So what if you could go into a Rotary year with a pretty good idea of exactly how many members you're going to lose over the year? So you could establish your goals to know how many you need to add throughout the year to end up with positive net growth. And the good news is we do have a tool that can help us do just that. So tonight we're going to learn a lot more about not learning about the membership success strategy. We're going to learn how to implement the Membership Success Center in your clubs and districts. And to do that, we have none other than the creator of this phenomenal program, Terry Weaver, who is the counterpart of Steve and I. He is the Rotary Coordinator in Zone 33, and he comes to us from District 7750. He's been a long-standing Rotarian, and he's been a member of 4 of the 100 largest Rotary clubs in the world, including right here in my backyard in St. Louis, Missouri. He's a strong foundation supporter. He practices what he preaches, and he's been acknowledged with many Rotary awards, including the Citation for Meritorious Service and the Regional Service Award for a Polio-Free World from the Rotary Foundation. And he has received the highest Rotary International Award of Service Above Self. He is an active promoter of entrepreneurship, and he advises and mentors young leaders in business. He's an engineer by trade, so you'll appreciate his delving into the data and not only showing us the data, but how to interpret and use the data successfully. He's a veteran of 22 years in supporting large businesses, and he's going to bring the gift of his vocation and talent into the heart of America tonight. Terry, take it away.
Thank you so much, Jill. Well, everybody, it's an honor and a pleasure to spend some time with you this evening. Jill's invited me to share some closely held secrets about how membership organizations actually work. And with a better understanding of those dynamics, we think you'll be much better armed and prepared to help your clubs become successful and consistently, moderately growing their clubs. This all began as a project in 2016 when an RI director and a Zone 33 Rotary coordinator challenged me to find some predictive data to identify clubs that were likely to succeed or fail in growing membership in the coming year. That's, of course, what you want from your stockbroker. You want to know what stocks are going to go up, not which ones did. And we learned some fascinating things that I'd like to share with you. First, as Jill pointed out, it's not true that all Rotary clubs are shrinking. In fact, in any given district, roughly a third to a quarter of Rotary clubs are actually growing and growing consistently. It's also true that attrition is real. Membership organizations lose members, businesses lose customers. What might surprise you, though, is that we can put a pretty hard metric on this, in that the average attrition across Rotary International and across North America is roughly 15%. Now, you might say, Terry, that sounds like an awful lot, but if you did a little bit of background research, you'd learn that the average trade association in the United States loses members at about 15% a year. The average alarm monitoring company, think ADT or Wells Fargo, they lose customers. Their customer base turns over at a rate of about 13% a year. And some of those same customers own property and casualty insurance through large insurance companies, think State Farm, Farm Bureau. And interestingly, they turn over customers at an average rate of about 16% a year. And even mobile phones, where you have the advantage of owing 3 years payment on your phone, whether you leave or not, they have a turnover rate of about 13% a year. Even more breathtaking was banking. Retail banks turn over customers at a rate of about 20 to 25% a year, and most of those, half of those, within the first 6 weeks. So what do all these folks have in common? They got over it. They figured out the environment they were living in. They said, we simply need a business plan to at least replace all those customers each year. And of course, if we want to grow, we're going to need to find a few more new customers. What we also learned is that attrition rates within a given club are remarkably consistent. It's unbelievably predictive. How many members your club lost over an average, say 3-year average, which is what we use, that same number is likely to need to be replaced in the coming year, and unless something wildly different happens, and those things take time. So you might assume that your average attrition on any of the past 3 years, for example, will roughly be the attrition that you'll expect to need to replace in this upcoming year. Now, you've heard a lot about retention over time, and that's simply because in the perception of Rotary International headquarters, retention is positive, attrition is negative. The problem is that you can't compare the two without doing some math, and that is a showstopper in some cases. Now, they are exactly the same thing. An attrition rate is just a retention rate subtracted from 100. So if the average club was retaining 85% of its members a year, they're losing 15. Retention rate of 85 equals an attrition rate of 15. But what we then discovered is that the likelihood of membership growth in any given year is not at all random. It turns out that if you take a look at clubs that have been growing, meaning they've grown at least 5% over the past 3 years total, those same clubs are likely to continue to grow year after year, about at a rate of about 80% likelihood. Sadly, we know success breeds success. Sadly, failure also breeds failure. And clubs that have been declining each of the past 3 years on average are likely again to continue to decline. And all of this is couched under the framework of unless something different happens, which is mostly our role, I believe, as district leaders. We need to help something different happen in clubs where the metrics are going the wrong direction. Then in between, it turns out that there are also some clubs that are just kind of riding on the bubble. And it turns out that those clubs can go either way. If you're within 5% of where you were 3 years ago, you could bounce into that growth group, or you could bounce into that declining group just as easily one way or the other. So here are some lessons I want to leave with you, and this would be a good time to just make a couple of quick notes, not a lot. But first of all, I mentioned that on average, we are looking at about a 15% attrition rate, and you can see how incredibly closely that data is clustered. Zone 30, for example, across each of the past 3 years, your attrition rate has been 14.6%, dead on the global average of Rotary International at 14.7. Zone 31, on the other hand, a little bit higher attrition rate, only 1% higher, 15.8, almost dead on the North American average of 15.6. Now, the next item is very important. One of the things we learned in looking at this data is you look across an entire district and you hardly ever see attrition rate less than 8 to 10%. That seems to be pretty much rock bottom. And my conclusion is that must just be the life happens level. Those must be clubs that are attractive and sticky and irresistible, and people want to stay part of that club, but something happens elsewhere in the world or elsewhere in their lives that causes them to leave. And in North America, that best-in-class threshold is right about 8 to 10%. And we'll come back to why that's so important in a minute. So here are some data points. That 15% is a magic number. If you're looking at a club attrition rate above 15%, that's a club where they need to be paying some attention to why people are voting with their feet. So attrition rates above 15%, that's a yellow flag. Once you get above 20, that's a red flag. People are leaving through what I call a turbine-powered revolving door. Now, clubs in North America, and I'm making the point that these numbers relate closely to North America. All the zones look pretty much alike, but they don't look like zones elsewhere in the world. But for our interest, we're talking about the way our 10 zones behave. If you're looking at an attrition rate in a club at 10% or less, you probably can't improve much by working harder on retention. The fact is that you're at about the structural level of turnover. And if your club is shrinking, despite the fact that you're at that low an attrition rate, you can't fix that problem by working harder on retention. You're going to have to go find some members. That brings me to an interesting observation, which is that retention, while it's an essential strategy to membership success, every member you keep is a member you don't have to replace. It's wildly overrated as a growth strategy. You can't retain your way from 20 to 25 members. You have to go find some people that want to join. And finally, it goes without saying, but I'll mention it, your attraction rate has to exceed your attrition rate. You have to attract members faster than you lose them. So what's the point of all this? The point of all this is that the single generalization you can make about membership in Rotary is that you can't generalize. You have to figure out at the club level what the problem is in that specific club. So that's because the best predictor of a club's future success or failure in growing membership is its past success or failure in growing membership. You can't fix membership gain globally, nationally, zone-wide, or district-wide. You got to fix it club by club. So that's why it's important to know the PTS, the problem to solve. What is the specific problem in the specific club that you're working on? Are they losing members too fast? Or are they attracting members too slowly? Or perhaps both, or perhaps neither. So there are 3 essential numbers that you need to know in terms of helping a club understand its membership success and its situation. First of all, the attrition rate. And again, that 15% is sort of the golden number. If clubs are significantly above that, they need to ask some questions about why people are leaving. If clubs are below that, they're doing better than average at holding on to members. Then we get down to that threshold of about 10%, and that's about as good as it gets. Then their attraction rate. Is their attraction rate exceeding their attrition rate? And that's, of course, the percentage of members admitted to a club in an average year. And of course, then percentages are helpful when you're talking about rates and metrics, but what you really need to know is how many people are likely to terminate in a club in an average year. And the fact is, you're probably going to need to replace about that many. And folks, I'll put money on this. I've been watching this a long time. It is a rare club where their attrition count at the end of this year will be more than plus or minus 1 or 2 from the number of members they lost on average over the past 3 years. You'll find this uncannily predictive. And this is the wake-up call for most presidents-elect. Now, we show this to people in pets and pre-pets, and of course, everybody said, nah, nobody's going to leave the club during my presidency. And then sure enough, lather, rinse, repeat. Life happens again, and pretty much the same outcome is achieved by the club that fails to recognize that they're going to need to attract members faster than they lose them. And all of that information is in what we call the Membership Success Center. So I wanted to give you a little tour of the Membership Success Center this evening. Now, we built this using data from Rotary International. This is exactly the same data that you'd get from the Rotary Club Central or from my Rotary. It is packaged and delivered in quite a different way that I think you'll see. But one of the things we did not do is we didn't build an access mechanism, meaning that you'd need to remember yet another set of member passwords and usernames. We built this off the password access structure of the DACDB club management tool. That again is a majority user base in this part of the country in zones 33 and 34. So you log into the Membership Success Center through DACDB, and I'll run you a quick, in the interest of time, a pre-recorded clip on how you do that, and then how this goal setting process unfolds in the MSC. Let's look at how to access the Membership Success Center. The primary login to the Membership Success Center is through DACDB. That's because DACDB has all that login information about you, your club, your district, your zone. So we didn't have to build that part out in the MSC. The way you do this through DACDB is you start on the District tab, and you're looking for an icon like this, Membership Success Center. Now, you probably won't see that icon the first time you look because you probably configured your workspace, and so it wouldn't be included. You just mouse up here to this configure, this little gear wheel up here at the top. You click on that, and you're looking for an icon named MAPSYS, M-A-P-S-Y-S, Membership Action Plan System. Now, it will be in this available icons row if you don't have it on your workspace yet. And yes, it'll be light blue just like all the rest. So you grab that, click it, and drag it up into the icons displayed row and click Set My Configuration. That's all there is to it. That puts the Membership Success Center icon on your district workspace. Let's click on that and have a look. It takes us to a page that reminds us that we are leaving DACDB, and then we can click on the Continue to Map button in order to make that transition. Now we're on the MSC homepage. When you have the time, come back here, scroll all the way down. And there's a library of really short videos on how to use the MSC. Each of those is less than 10 minutes, and it starts with a goal-setting guided tour, a progress dashboard guided tour, and some other things that we'll look at today. So let's have a look at the goal-setting link up here. Now, since you logged in through DACDB, we know your club, and we drop you right into your own club's data. So let's walk through this first as a club leadership user. We're going to take a look at a club that has a membership goal in place. Now, when you first open this page, if you've not set a membership goal, you'll see this pop-up of goal setting considerations. Just a few sentences of the things that someone should think about when setting a membership goal. Once you set a membership goal, you won't see this pop up again. Now, the MSC is laden with those kinds of prompts and help resources. There's one behind each one of these little circles with a question mark in it. What we're trying to do during the goal setting process
is teach the user something about how a membership organization works and why these metrics are important. The first thing you notice are these key metrics relative to your club's membership history. These are important because your club is likely to keep performing at about the same way in the future unless something changes. Scrolling down a little further, you see the section where we can do some goal setting. And down below that, you have a graphical look at the club's history over the past 5 years. Now over here on the left, we see a View Recommended Strategies button. And just above that, you'll see that we've diagnosed the problems to solve for your particular club based on your own data. So let's have a look. Here are some recommended strategies handpicked for these problems to solve. You'll notice some links to other resources to help you in your consideration of these strategies. Now, folks, this is the secret sauce. Using these membership action plan strategies and armed with this data, zones 33, 34, 28, and 32 have become the membership leaders in North America so far this year. Year to date, these 4 zones rank 1, 2, 3, and 4 in North American membership growth. Now, I'm not going to change their membership goal, but let's take a look using this example of how this works. I'll click the Edit Goal button, and you'll notice that they have either set a net growth rate of 14%, or they set a membership goal of 50 members. I don't exactly know which. The point is that, for example, if you want to go for just a moderate growth rate in your club, say 5%, you can enter 5 here, and we'll back calculate how many members that will take in order to meet that goal. Or you can do what they probably did, which is enter 50 members in the target box, and we'll back calculate a net growth rate, in this case of 14%. Now, here's the most important number on the page, the anticipated membership loss, the number of members you'll likely need to replace because you've lost that number of members on average for each of the past 3 years. In this case, that number is 6. So you might ask, is that attrition inevitable? No, if you're willing and able to change some things in your club. You want to be working hard at reducing that rate of attrition, but it won't happen overnight. And it's reasonable to assume that you may need to replace about that many members again this year until you get better at holding on to members. Now, this is usually where the gasps and sighs of disbelief come out when you first show this in a membership training session. This is data that's available in Rotary Club Central, but virtually impossible to make sense of. So we simplify it and make it relevant by adding the number by which you want to grow with the number that you'll likely need to replace. The bottom line is the number of new members that a membership committee needs to attract in order to reach your goal. And folks, I believe this has been one of our major fails. Not being forthright with club leaders about the fact that attrition is real, they're going to lose some members, and we can fairly accurately predict how many. They have to plan to replace those. Most presidents-elect would think to grow their 40-member club to 42, they need numbers. Easy deal. They won't figure out until the end game that they also lost 6. Once you're satisfied with the membership goal, you just click Save Edits, and you're finished. I, of course, will cancel out of this since they already have a membership goal set. And you may be wondering, how does this fit in with the goals in Rotary Club Central? We have plans to be able to write a membership goal set in the MSC to Rotary Club Central, but until that's developed, we recommend that clubs do their goal setting in the MSC, because as you can see here, this is a significantly richer data set, a lot more information on how the club has been performing over time, and these pop-ups and tutorials along the way where people can learn a little more about membership and membership goal setting as they go. Once you've got a membership goal established in MSC, then you can just log into Rotary Club Central and put in the same goal there. Now, if you've already entered your goal in Rotary Club Central, I guarantee it's worth your time to walk through this process and enter it in the MSC as well. The value proposition in that is the Club Progress Dashboard. We'll see more of that later.
So you can see that the Membership Success Center has a data-rich environment in which a club can set its membership goals. They have all they need and only what they need to set a reasonable membership goal based on the club's past membership performance. So how will that be helpful? Well, the MSC has an additional reporting layer that's not been available to clubs in the past, a predictive progress dashboard where they can tell whether they're on track, behind pace, or ahead of pace at a rate of attracting new members needed to meet their goal. And more importantly, you, as district leaders, have those same dashboards available to you to use in coaching and communication with those club leaders. So let's have a look at that again in a pre-recorded segment, how you can use the tools in the Membership Success Center as a coaching and helping tool for your club.
Now let's put our district hats on. Let's look at the Membership Success Center as a training and coaching tool. Again, I encourage you to scroll down the homepage of the MSC and take a look at the video guided tours that will remind you of how to use this extraordinary tool. Let's look at the best coaching page on the site, the Progress Dashboard page. When the page opens, you'll notice that your club's membership history has been converted from percentages to hard numbers. I've learned that percentages are just not useful for a sizable percentage criterions. A hard count of new members year to date, new members needed to meet the goal, terminations year to date, and average annual attrition are the headliners. As we saw on the goal setting page, these little circles with the question mark inside are rollover pop-ups that explain each of these parameters. If you set a membership goal for your club, you'll see the number of new members needed to reach that goal. If not, we impute a net gain of 5% and add that to the average attrition. Once the club sets its membership goal, these numbers adjust accordingly. Now, this is a larger club we looked at before. They plan to grow their club by 6 members, and they have an annual average attrition of 6 members that they'll likely need to replace. That means they'll need 12 new members to meet their goal. Scrolling down, we see 2 representations of their progress. First, a bar graph that shows they're already 25% to their goal of 12 new members in August. Scrolling down farther, you see this gold trend line of the needed new member attraction pace beginning July 1st and ramping up to June 1st at 12 members. If you mouse over any part of the gold line, you'll see how many members they need at that point in the year in order to meet their goal and to be on pace for attracting the number of members they'll need by the end of the year. There's also a full screen view of this same graph with the same mouse overs. Folks, this is predictive data, what you want from your stockbroker. The degree to which you're behind or ahead of the new member attraction baseline predicts exactly how far you're likely to exceed or fall short of your membership goal at year end. On the left side, we find some detail. They're doing well. They've brought on 3 new members year to date. They've lost only 1 for a net gain of 2. Of course, that still leaves them 9 members away from their goal. How can that be? Yes, they have a net gain of 2 members for the year, but remember that they need 12 new members to meet their goal, of which they've attracted 3. They'll still need another 9 members to meet their goal because they're going to lose some members. They just haven't told us who they are yet. The point of this progress dashboard is to regularly remind you and your clubs that you need to anticipate attrition on an annual basis and to track in advance the members that it will take to replace those leaving the club. Attrition tends to be back-end loaded, and clubs are regularly disappointed that a couple of surprise terminations late in the year bursts their early net gain bubble and they end up with a loss. Now, this is the progress dashboard for a club. Let's scroll up and take a look at the same thing for a district. It's a little different in that we're not so much looking at attractions and terminations as we are at overall net membership gain. As on the club progress dashboard, there are some important progress metrics across the top of the page. Scrolling down, this success track model forecasts exactly where you need to be in order to withstand the average net loss of members in December and June. This again provides a predicted pace of net member growth required to end the year with a net gain, considering the typical drops of membership in December and June as clubs clear their books to avoid semi-annual dues on inactive members. For those of you interested in this model, this rollover has a link to a white paper that fully explains the success track. On the left-hand side, we see their overall statistics. This district has attracted 42 new members in the month of August. They've suffered 17 terminations for a net gain of 25. And you see that represented right here on the graph. Those are their 25 members against a target of just over 9. So, scrolling up to the top, we see that net gain loss relative to the success track as 16. They are 16 members ahead of the game at the 1st of August. Now, district governors and district membership chairs, I'm speaking to you. This success track thing is real. These losses in December do happen, and the losses in June do happen, and they're devastating if you weren't anticipating them. So you want to get off the blocks early in the year, get ahead of that success track pace, and then stay there for the second half. And finally, there's one more gold nugget report. That's the year-to-date goal progress by club report. This report highlights gains and losses to this point in the year. And I suggest that you turn on the attrition attraction counts year-to-date, and then check this box that says show clubs with 0 new members year-to-date. You'll see an astonishing number of clubs that have attracted no new members yet this year. Now, this is not such a big deal in August, but I can assure you, when you come back here the 1st of October or the 1st of November, you're going to find a surprising number of clubs that haven't put one foot ahead of the other. They haven't attracted a single new member year to date. There's also a checkbox where you can check the clubs that have attracted only one new member year to date. And that's actually of similar concern, because a 64-member club or a 55-member club that's attracted only one new member year to date is obviously behind the curve in terms of meeting their membership goal. Waiting to the last half of the year to start your new member attraction machine is a known failure strategy. You want to keep these presidents, mostly first-timers, from making that mistake. So those are some of the tools that you'll want to use in helping your club stay on track for the year. First, the progress dashboard. You can look at that on an individual club basis. You can look at that on a district or zone basis. And then the year-to-date goal progress by club, which tells you exactly where each club is in its membership progress at that snapshot point of the year. All the best in helping your clubs set membership goals and then stay on track to achieve those starting early in the year when it really counts.
So what we've learned is attrition is real, and you can easily calculate it from available data. In fact, you don't have to calculate it at all. It's right there in front of you in the Membership Success Center. You have to attract members faster than you lose them. And here's something for you to think about as district leaders. Chronic membership failure, this is not the objective. This is not the symptom. I'm sorry, this is not the root cause. This is a symptom of leadership dysfunction within a club. And the fact is that if these clubs could fix themselves, they probably already would have. So plan to provide some outside help. Plan to get arm in arm with clubs that are challenged with respect to membership and need help, and put together a Tiger team that can go in and help clubs hands-on figure out first, what's their PTS, what's their problem to solve, what are they going to have to fix in order to get their club back into a mode of consistent and moderate membership growth. Be happy to take your questions and see if there's anything else that I perhaps missed that is of interest to you.
Thanks, Terry. So looks like Craig's already got it figured out. We'd like you to use the raise hand function because we have quite a few people on the Zoom, or you can also put your questions in chat.
Does this data go backwards as well? So that I could have, let's see what I've done year over year. And if I go back 5 years before the pandemic, it'd be, it'd give me some hints on, was it, like you said, was it a leadership problem or is it something else?
Basically, the objective here was to predict what's going to happen forward from here. Now, I've been working on this, as I said, 6 years or so. And so I've watched these statistics track and essentially demonstrate their ability to predict the future. But I don't know that there's anything particularly useful going back, 3, 4, 5 years. You see 5 years of data in what's called the MGI, the Membership Growth Index report, which we didn't have time to cover tonight. So you can see 5 years of history there in terms of counts. But then you'd have to go back into figuring out, what was going on in the club at that time for that to be useful.
Hello. So we have been trying to implement this in District 5600, and my question is that we have our club goals listed in Rotary Club Central, but they're not showing up in the map. Do we need to re-enter those club goals for each club into the map system?
Yes, for right now, that would be the case. And several districts, we've done that for all the districts in Zone 33. Just scrape them out of the RCC, drop them into map. It takes maybe 30 seconds per club to do that.
Okay, so you just did it versus having them go back in.
It's known in the trade as finger linking.
All right, thank you.
We have Jeff, then Brian, again, then Landon.
Yeah, my question is a practical one, I guess. Let's say we determine from using the data here that we've got 10 clubs really need help. How do we help them? What do we do? I mean, we've got a membership team that is just kind of forming. I'm new at this. What do you do when you see that Club X really has a problem? How do
That's
you?
a real good question.
Yeah.
Here's an intentional approach to that, Jeff. First, commit yourself to putting together a small Tiger team or club support team or whatever of people that should have the skill set to actually hands-on help a club. The way I would do that, if it were me, and I've done this before, take a look at the, again, the MGI report, the Membership Growth Index, which is actually just data out of the 5-year history report that you can pull from Rotary Club Central. It's exactly the same data. Take a look at spot growth years among those 5 years. Just scan across the clubs, spot a growth year, circle it, then go back in DACDB or Club Runner, whatever your tool is, and figure out who was present that year. Those would be my hit parade players to help other clubs. Somebody that's been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And again, some of those people have probably been promoted to become assistant governors. They could be helpful as well. The way one of our districts, the state of West Virginia is one district statewide. And what they did is they identified 14 clubs that were clearly struggling. They had a team of 7. They took 2 apiece and just connected with the clubs, offered their help. Now, not every club will believe that they've got a problem or will accept help. We can't fix them all. But that's the best way to do this, I think, is divide it down into where a given volunteer on your membership team has no other responsibilities except to help clubs that need help. Take 2 or 3 clearly struggling clubs and see if you can work with them directly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Brian?
I have 2 questions. I think I know the answer to the first, but I just want to clarify. Everybody in DACDB has access to this, so I can go train clubs, their membership chairs, their presidents, everything on it.
Yes, by virtue of logging in through DAC, we know 2 things. We know their club and we also know their access level. So if they are a club officer, they'll have the ability to, for example, set or change a membership goal. If they're a regular member, DAC access level 1, they'll be able to see everything about their club, but only their club. But they won't be able to change anything. Likewise, people like yourselves, who have DAC excess levels of 5, 6, or 7, you'll be able to see district-wide all the information about your clubs, and then zone leaders have the ability to roam all the districts.
My second question is on the year-to-date goal progress, which this is just amazing, by the way. I like being able to see that attrition rate. Are you ever thinking of adding the percentages there too? Because you kept highlighting how, like I think it was 15% was one to really be concerned with. It'd be nice to see that percentage there also. Is that in the plans ever?
Yes, it is. There is a report that we didn't have time for tonight, though. If you click on the membership growth index report, you'll see more data than you can tolerate. And that those attrition and attraction rates are there.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Landon?
Hey, Terry, thank you for the presentation. Our district is on Club Runner, so could you address real quickly what's needed to get this over on Club Runner?
Basically, the zone has a strategy for that. We are in conversation with Club Runner about doing the same thing. And I've also been working with IT staff in Evanston. The idea is basically to allow anybody in North America or the world, for that matter, to be able to do this same access strategy through Rotary Club Central. That will require a little bit of coding and will require a little bit of remaining design and figuring out, but we can do exactly the same thing with some help from our folks in Evanston.
So one of the things, and I know several of you have typed in the chat and kind of asked about, well, what if we're not a DAC district? How do we get into this?
Yeah.
We will be working with each of the districts that are a Club Runner district, at least in zones 30 and 31. Terry, if you want to just maybe kind of just a brief introduction of the fact that we can send an email template so they don't have to necessarily have a DAC account. You could address that?
Yes, assuming that we take, for example, that we harvest club leadership information from Club Runner, and in Zone 33, the way we've handled this, since we have 3 districts out of 17 that are largely Club Runner districts, we basically built profiles for the club leaders in each of those clubs within DACDB with some help from those folks. So that's one of the options, and that may be a zone strategy for you as well.
Thanks. Yeah, we'll be working with the governors of those districts to make sure that that's something that they're interested in, and if they give us permission, that we can work with them on that.
Looking at some of the district numbers, is there a way to eliminate the clubs that are no longer chartered?
From where are you seeing those?
I'm looking at, in this case, I guess it's the district reports around membership growth index, which shows
Right.
likely to continue to grow, all that stuff. I got a lot of zeros in there from clubs that haven't existed for over 5 years.
The clubs that had 0 members of any of the past 5 years are not represented. You'll see some there that had a July 1st in the original column. And the point of including those, Mark, is that those play into the overall attrition and attraction history of the zone or of the district. So that's why they're down there, and they're sort of the bottom of the report to keep them out of your way. But they are part of the history, and they're part of the, shall we say, trends across your district, and part of the district baseline, if you will. Your average attrition, for example, includes attrition from those failed clubs along the way.
There are all these clubs have been gone for 10 years or more, and they're showing up on my dashboard.
Yeah, Mark, we can work on that individually.
Yeah.
We'll take a look at that.
Thanks. Terry, that does bring up a good point, because we do have some new clubs that are growing. Can you just address how the data is skewed when we have a new club or maybe a satellite club that's spun off to its own club?
Sure, a couple of different sidetracks there. New clubs are represented the month that they show up in the data. So the database accommodates and absorbs new clubs. Now, of course, a new club, will have 20 members, and they all join the same year, so that'll look like great success for that year. So we do a couple of things to smooth that out a little bit over their second and third year. But the thing that I really am confounded by And that is clubs that merged or clubs that spun off, say a satellite went off and chartered. The challenge there is that there's nothing at all in an available RI report that will tell you that that happened. You can't see from the reports we have available to us that a given club either merged and what their history was, and then how would you like pro forma that back, calculate what the club would have looked like if it had been merged before. So the way we're going to solve that problem is we will have a way for district leadership to tag a club that says there's something you need to pay closer attention to here than just what you're seeing. In other words, the data you're seeing is either skewed by a merger or it's skewed by a split. So don't take it to the bank. Figure out what's happening on a local level, because that's all we have available to us as source data.
Terry, we have time for one more question. So Rich?
Yeah, Terry, you hit it right on the button what I was thinking about, because our club, two clubs merged together on May 26th, and it shows our attrition rate of 6 or 7 members. Well, that was the old club that we merged with. We kept their charter because it's a 107-year-old club, but it shows where we didn't have an attrition rate of such in our old club, but that old club is gone and the information is not there anymore.
Yeah,
So the district can put a star on that, or are you looking?
exactly. It's
Okay.
basically just a flag that says, hey, there's something more to this than meets the eye. And of course, by the same token, your club looked hugely successful at attracting members, right? They got all those new ones for free.
All right. Well, thank you all for your questions. Who else is excited about this? This is amazing. Terry, we want to thank you. And I know that you were the brainchild behind this, but we have a lot of your counterparts that have worked with you over the years from the zone, and some of our North American coordinators have joined us this evening in support. So again, thank you for sharing this to the heart of America and to our visitors from around the world. This is a game changer, but it's only as good as what we execute.